What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spinauer and Theo Ash. And welcome to Championship Weekend, AFC and NFC Championships. We just finished watching them. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing?
I wanted Cincinnati to win, so I'm definitely a little bit crushed. I can't stand the Joe Burrow lucky talk. That is so annoying to me.
I tried to jinx him
you
for
did
you.
your best. You did your best.
I went 4 for 5. I think that's pretty good.
But it's just like, Burrow has this horribly beat up offensive line once again, and the other team's getting fifth downs or whatever the hell. And I don't think Joe Burrow's any luckier than any other player, and that's not because I don't think that Burrow is like better than Mahomes. I'm not a crazy person. But he's getting the LaMelo Ball treatment where he gets talked about too much and then people dislike him because of that.
I don't consider that the LaMelo Ball treatment. I consider that like maybe the Zion or LeBron treatment.
Yeah, it's
these days.
LeBron's different. He's a whole nother level, but that's always a guy that I think about it happening to. I don't think that's a crazy take at all. I think that makes perfect sense. Yeah, that happened to LaMelo Ball, the LaMelo Ball treatment.
Yeah, okay. Sure,
I think, look, the lead up, this was an electric lead up to the AFC Championship game. I will say that. The mayors going back and forth and the whole Burrowhead thing, regardless of outcome, I think it's good for the sport to have two of the most prominent teams in a conference just hate each other this much, and it's going to be such a good rivalry for years and years to come. Obviously, I don't know who first said Burrowhead, but the way that caught and kind of spread to the Chiefs locker room and how much they hated that, I thought that it was very good theater throughout the entire week. And yeah, I did want the Chiefs to win for the sake of the perfect bracket that I've got going so far. I'd like to get it 100% right. So I was glad to see the Chiefs win, but I was mostly glad to see a good win. And Matt, Burrow definitely was not lucky tonight. I mean, I know I said something on Twitter about
people are just
about
oh my
how,
God,
he was whispering spells on the sidelines to get Mahomes to drop the ball, and that's just a banger tweet. You got to
I don't disagree with that, but on Twitter, dude, Mahomes fumbles the ball, and what do people on Twitter say? Oh my God, Joe Burrow is so lucky. Well, come on, what? Look, I don't disagree. Like, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't think for a second Joe Burrow is better than him. But like, dude, if Joe Burrow fumbles the ball backwards like that, it's the end of days on Twitter. This will be Armageddon forever. So, but Mahomes played a great game.
Yeah,
I just thought that.
No, I mean, Mahomes played about as good of a game as you could have possibly asked him to. I mean, he didn't. I mean, outside
they had
of the
three
fumble,
active wide receivers, man, and it seemed like every single play, the Chiefs, like someone on the Chiefs came up limping. I mean, the Bengals must have been hitting hard because it just felt like so many times there'd be a play and then it would be a Chiefs guy on the ground or up, come up gingerly. And I really thought the Bengals were going to win that game. I thought the Chiefs were going to run out of gas by the end. Just kind of a weird, disjointed day of football in both of the games, really, with all of the kind of weird stuff and, the way more ref involvement than you'd like to see. I definitely think the Bengals definitely got the short end of the stick when it comes to the reffing, obviously, with the phantom, down, which, to be fair, like, they shouldn't have had the clock running, right? And the guy was running on the field to stop the play, right? The play shouldn't, like, it's unfortunate that they screwed that up, but the fact that play did get a do-over was, like, they called it dead.
It was unfortunate, but they ended up punting anyway, right? Like, the Bengals ended up
anyway, and that's
right.
And that's always the thing with ref calls is there's no one play. I mean, I'm talking about Joseph Asai here at the end. There's never one singular play that decides the outcome of a full game. And yeah, I thought that obviously the only way the Chiefs were going to win this game, because I think they were outgunned in basically most categories here, whether that be on the ground, through the air with all the injuries they've had, and the defense. Like, the one balancing factor is if Chris Jones completely terrorizes the banged up Bengals offensive line and their pressure rate is obscenely high. And at the end of the day, I think that's what it came down to. I think Chris Jones he's my defensive player of the year. And I mean, this was his shining jewel of a game. And I think you got to give.
He had a great game, but the entire Chiefs defensive line, I felt, was getting after it. George Karlaftis got back there. He got. I wonder. I was looking. I'm like, if the Bengals somehow managed to pull this game out, if they had somehow managed to, I'm like, the Eagles are going to have 70 sacks in one game. Like, it was going to exactly. It was going to be an insane. It would have been insane. I mean, the Chiefs were just always in the backfield every single.
What's insane about Jones, and especially thinking about the last sack, is he can rush off the edge, right? I mean, it's easy to double team an interior player, right? You can slide the line that way and get the center and guard. And for him to be like 6'6", like 320 pounds or whatever the guy is, and be able to just bend the arc and win off the edge, it's crazy what he's able to do. And you got to shout out Spags. He was getting him open in some creative ways. I know earlier they highlighted how they shaded the middle linebacker directly over the center, and the center had to like stay in for a moment and like make sure that he didn't rush. And I think honestly, Karras maybe could have done a better job of like reading that guy wasn't blitzing and then like helping out on Jones, but Jones just won so quickly in that scenario that like it was too late. So yeah. And no running in this game from either team, which was an interesting thing.
No type of running. And the Chiefs didn't ever seem to quite realize this for the entire game. It was unbelievable. Outside of that one, and I think this was even a check down, that one Pachinko play where he's had one of those the last two games where it's like there's nothing here, and then he just finds a way to get a whole bunch of yards instead.
I don't get it, man. He's just a bowling ball. It's just like randomly.
It's a bowling ball with 4.4 speed. Whoever wears that number 10 jersey in Kansas City just gets blessed with powers. It's a secret amulet that they've getting that jersey.
Let's look back and find everyone ever that's worn that jersey and just see if they ended up being a god.
But yeah, I mean, they've got this guy in Pacheco that could be an 1,000-yard rusher, like a top 10 rusher in the league. It looks like every time he touches the ball, right? He's bouncing off guys. He breaks the first tackle every single time. He's got real home run speed. Like, they've got a guy here that it really does feel like they could like maybe lean on him a little bit. Now, I will say that I'm looking at it now, their success rate running the football was abysmal in this game. So I guess it makes sense.
I blame
that
DJ Reader.
I've also blamed
many a good running back are thwarted by DJ Reader.
Yeah, there's been one 100-yard rusher all year from the Bengals. So, the Chiefs ended up winning the game. I was a little bit surprised with Mahomes' ankle banged up and all the wide receivers out that they didn't try it a little bit more. But it's tough to say that it would have worked better because, the success rate was just so bad. And, man, Mahomes is just the best. He's the best to ever do it, I think. Like, he has no receivers. He has no receivers. He has no running game. He's on a banged up ankle, and like that throw to MVS where he like contorted his body. I don't know how he got as much zip on the ball. He's just a monster. I don't know.
Best I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Man. It's a heck of a game. Going to the Osai late hit. It is a late hit. I kind of think that could just happen to anybody on any play, though. When you're talking about like a guy going for the corner on the first down and it's like you're going at that speed, I think it's so hard to pull back mentally instantly. So I don't know if I really blame him. It's just such a sucky way.
He played such a good game too. And he played. Like, I mean, he burned Orlando Brown in that game. He went off, and he's been really good. But yes,
it's an unfortunate call, but it is the right one. Like, you have to pull away. Like, I know it's hard.
Call holding on Trey Hendrickson, I say, but
that's also true. They did miss that one, but
it's like I don't know. I would have been cooler for a more legendary last drive. That's the one thing that was really disappointing about this game. It's like, okay, Burrow gets clobbered 80 times, and then, Mahomes is starting at his 50 because terrible special teams moment, and he throws like a check down and then runs for 4 yards, and that's the game.
Yeah, I think that this or both championship games were a bit too decided by or marred by injury and refs that kind of took away from this being one of those all-time great football weekends. Because these games were so hyped up. They were so good on paper. And this was a great game. My heart was pounding that entire Bengals game. But it was a hell of a game. But man, I do wish it was a little bit better. But they've got the Chiefs, man. I mean, Orlando Brown, Osai took it to him the entire game. He was getting burned over and over and over again. Reddick and Graham, like, they've got to figure something out, dude. And I feel really bad for Osai because he lost all of last year to injury. Kind of worked his way through the rotation this year and played really well. Like like you say, Matt, or BLAIDEN, like you say, you gotta pull up, like somehow, some way, you gotta find it in you to just,
because they're calling that every time.
Keep your hands down, find it, but it's really hard. I have a lot of sympathy
especially with the Maflop Oscar moment after it. It's just, what are you?
He really did a great job selling it. He totally went limp and like hit the ground as hard as he could. It was
selling it is like he hit the ground as hard, as hard as possible.
Well, go watch the play. He like really kind of flings his body out of control.
Grow up.
But that's what you got to do. That's what you. No.
I mean, I'm all for
If LeBron did that driving to the lane, he wouldn't get a penalty. First of all, he wouldn't get a penalty. But I know we'd all be applauding his acting efforts if he did.
My glorious king.
But that's one of those things where I'm like, if that happened to Burrow, it would be the luckiest play of the century. That's what really bothers me about some of the Twitter narratives. But
Burrow devil magic.
I got to turn off the phone.
Burrow did not have a lucky game at all. He had 2 passes. I guess the second one not so, but the first one where it like literally grazed off of Jamar's helmet, and then the next one it was kind of into double cover. It was more into double coverage. But like T. Higgins, I mean, that he's capable of going up to get those. It looked like it may have been a little behind. I couldn't quite tell.
It's a shame that Burrow's best throw wasn't caught. That Hayden Hurst one shot to the end zone. That was money. I wish that had been caught. But Mahomes had one like that too. Tony couldn't come down with one. So
right.
It all evens out.
The Chiefs defense deserves a lot of credit. I know we've talked about Chris Jones, but I thought that, we had Coleman on and Willie Gay posted something on his story talking about how they haven't been very good at stopping these zone runs. And, last time they played, Samajay Pirine ran all over them. And I thought their run defense was very stellar in this game. And, and it really came down to the arm of Burrow. And Chase was pretty much bottled up. Obviously, he mossed him when he was double teamed on that where Cook, your guy Cook from Cincinnati, didn't play it well, and that was on the 4th down. That was a bad moment, and then Chase, got his. But other than that, like down the field, I don't want to say there isn't too much there because there were 2 huge plays: the touchdown to Higgins and the play
even
to
the
Chase.
Higgins
but
touchdown.
Overall,
the Higgins touchdown was doubled. He just jumped like 3 feet in the air to snag it.
Perfect ball tracking to get it right at the high point.
Like,
that's why he could have been a D1 basketball player. But I mean, overall, Cook redeemed himself, like running down the field with Higgins, just perfect defense, batting it up in the air. And then the other rookie, whose name is, I can't remember who actually got the pick there because Cook's play stands out. You'll have to see on the All-22 exactly what the Chiefs were doing to keep Chase away. But I remember, in the last game, not the last game, but last year Chase caught that screen and took it to the house. It was terrible tackling. You didn't really notice that in this game. I actually saw some times where Chase got tackled by the first guy to touch him, which never happens to Jamar Chase ever. He's made out of soap and rubber and like with a Teflon coating, and he just bounces off people all the time. So it was, they forced him to settle for field goals. They forced some turnovers for Burrow.
Both defenses
probably could have had
played
it
great.
Yeah, they both played great, and it was Go ahead, Matt.
I don't know. It's we're recording this like 5 minutes after the game happened, man. I'm
still trying to like gather my thoughts. I was like,
I have more like set thoughts for the other game, but for this one, man, I don't know. I think ultimately not being able to run the ball is what made this Bengals team look so different from what it looked like last year, and they could have just as easily won this one, but it's like their offensive line just was not there for them. There's too many plays, and there was maybe one or two. It's tough to tell without looking at the all 22 exactly like how much of it was Burrow holding on to the ball, because he definitely wasn't getting it out as quickly as he was against Buffalo. But there's definitely a lot of times where it's like, okay, same guy getting beat here 100 times, 1,000 times. Burrow took, what do you have, 6 sacks?
Yeah.
I
remember there was one play. There was one play where Romo mentioned he had Chase wide open, like down the field. He could have scored, and there was some pressure, so he threw it in the dirt, basically. So we'll see on the all 22 exact. That is probably other than the coverage, had a lot to do with it. But yeah, it was a heavyweight fight. It was a heavyweight fight, and I hope next year we're definitely getting this matchup every single year, just like Packers versus Seahawks every year in the NFC when Rodgers and the Legion of Boom obviously would go at it all the time, and there was like the Fail Mary and then the 2014 championship game. After that, they scheduled Packers Seahawks every single season for a while.
They did the same thing with the Panthers. The Panthers would always play the Seahawks for a long time. Yeah, around that same time.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I believe it. Cam versus the Legion of Boom, and obviously Brady versus Manning, and I couldn't be more happy about it. Just an elite shit talking week. I know that Eli Apple gets a lot of hate. Cancun on 3 with the Hamlin heart emoji was a crazy thing to say by him. That has nothing to do with the Chiefs, but just two teams that really don't like each other and talk a lot of shit.
Good. That's the way that it's supposed to be.
Yes. It's needed. And I know people complain, Matt, like Kayvon Thibodeau on Twitter. We were talking about that. He is he is a instigator of the highest order, saying, just the craziest things about the 49ers, and I don't know if I would never be that guy, but I'm glad guys like that. Obviously Thibodeau took it too far with the snow angel stuff, but it's good to have some villains around the league. And I wouldn't say Burrow is a villain, but
I don't think Burrow's a
villain. It's not Burrow, it's the people who talk about Burrow that get him in so much trouble, man.
Right. And we talk about the NFL marketing its stars, and it's just like that, right? Like every sport could use a little bit more of it. So I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think that, it just came down to Chris Jones wreaking havoc on the Bengals offensive line. I don't know what else to say. If Burrow had more time, I 100% think that T. Higgins could have dunked on those dudes all day if Burrow had, time to chill in the pocket, and Chase could have dunked on those dudes all day, but they just didn't have that kind of time. In the biggest moments, they came through. Chris Jones specifically came through. Karlaftis and others. Frank Clark had a sack. Right. So I thought that's what it basically
Playoff
came
Frank
down
Clark,
to.
Man.
There was just and the penalty luck. Sadly, those were the two main things. I thought
that's the way that it goes, though.
Yeah, and I don't have too much more to say about it. Anything else?
I don't either. It's fun. It's such a big matchup, but that doesn't mean you can talk about it for 30 minutes.
I will. One other note I'll say is Cam Taylor-Britt had a pretty nice game. I saw him.
He's been good for them. He had a great game versus Buffalo, and
he had a really nice T-step and like in front of I think it might have been Valdez-Scantling, to just like on a hitch route, and I saw Mahomes just like, "You gotta come back to the ball. He's right on you."
Yes.
I was like, man, that was just a great play. So I wanted.
I guess we could talk a bit about maybe where the Bengals go from here and what it looks like going forward. I don't think.
That's kind of the thing.
We talked a little bit about that in the last episode. Like they might have to consider trading T. Higgins. I don't think that will happen. I think there's going to be some I think they have to do some devil magic with the cap. I think that it's going to be there's going to be a bunch of contracts that hit like 3 years from now. And, 3 years from now, like goodbye, DJ Reader, goodbye, Jermaine Pratt, goodbye, Joe Mixon, goodbye. But those three, I think you've got to keep them around, because as long as those three are around, you're never out of the game. I know, the Chiefs have been up in every single game they played in versus the Bengals, up at halftime, up in the fourth quarter. But then it's just, you're so explosive. You can win down the sidelines in a hurry. And you just got like the whole identity to the Bengals, like as good as DJ Reader is, that can be replaced. Like that, as good as Jermaine Pratt is, like not saying these guys are for sure gone, but I think that the Bengals, they have to be extremely motivated to get
the defense in the run game is
and
malleable.
whoever else leaves. Bates, he's almost certainly gone. Von Bell, like these are losses you have to live with to keep that big three together in my book.
Yeah, the defense in the run game, they're malleable. You can bring guys in, move guys around. I think you'll be okay.
I don't think that Mike Brown is unaware of that. He's made some, like, for instance, the Bengals had a big thing about it was Paul Brown Stadium, and we're not going to change it from Paul Brown Stadium. Well, just recently they sold the rights to that for some money, and now it's Paycor Stadium. And I think they're preparing for the eventuality of we got to pay the guys.
That's so funny. God, they're such. I don't want to say like this in a bad way, but they really are such like a poverty. They're the poorest owners. Literally, they have to sell the old family heirloom to like pay for their bills. Like, oh my God, it's like I don't.
You
want
just need liquid.
To come after me, but they're just the only franchise.
We talked about
we're
this
never
with
doing
Brett.
this. I'm never selling grandma's locket. It means so much to me, but hard times have come, and we have to do it because we have this nice stuff that we have to keep.
Yeah, you gotta. Fuck, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I think a team that just like didn't care about money, because there's some owners that are just so rich where it's like whatever. A team that didn't care about money would have an incredibly aggressive Bengals offseason this year. But you still have Burrow for cheap. You would be like total and complete. We're going absolutely bonkers, and we're like restructuring, and they already have cap space if they really want to, but I just don't know if they have the funds to do it.
Right. Same. We talked
with the
with
first
Brett
round pick of the draft. Let's just have
it.
some fun. Let's just have some fun for a second. First round pick of the draft. Obviously, you're not going to get a superstar player with where they're picking, but what area? I mean, offensive line, right? I guess this is not a.
It's offensive line because it's like, dude, even if they don't end up starting, or like even if you're like we're pushing someone we're paying to be a backup, the last 2 years the Bengals offensive line has started like some random at an important position, and you just can't have that. I mean, if you're like, well, now the Bengals offensive line is so deep, okay, great, awesome, perfect, like you want that. So I 100% agree, and some of their acquisitions last offseason just didn't work out the way that you wanted them to. So I think you go offensive line. It's hard to justify pretty much anything else.
I think about the Jets. I think about the Jets and how like it took them like 3 or 4 years to really get their offensive line to kind of a consistently competitive level, because like they kept overhauling it and it just kept being bad.
I wonder if La'el
just might
Collins,
take time to get that right.
I wonder if La'el Collins will even be back. I'm looking at it now. They would save $6 million by just cutting him.
Ooh.
I wonder. I mean, he was so bad this year that like Hakeem Adeniji was like borderline better, like in the when he went down.
Those are some dangerous words, man.
Those are so dangerous words. They did a good job.
Is not better than.
I didn't realize that he's already 30 years old too. Wow. I thought he was way younger than that. It didn't feel like he had been in the league that long. I mean, this was his first big contract, I believe. They did a good job not overpaying him. His base salary is only 4.5 and 3.9 million these next 2 years. For a guy who was a pretty high profile free agent, they did a very nice job getting at least. I mean, what didn't end up being a good deal because he sucked.
Survivable.
But
There's
a survivable deal, because if you gave him...
there's been some disaster offensive line deals. It's
Right.
not as bad as it could be.
Yeah. So, if he would have like been a top 5 or top 3 highest paid right tackle, because he wasn't a nobody in Dallas, right? Like, he did a pretty decent job there, I would say. He was a fine starter.
Peak
and
Lyle
sometimes
Collins
when guys
was
like that,
really good.
yeah. So it'll be, they did a good job. They don't have any like albatross deals on the thing. I wonder if they'll cut Lyle Collins and draft a replacement, because I just don't know how you can feel confident with him as the answer at right tackle. I feel like I'd rather have that $6 million than Lyle Collins at this point. So watch out for that. And that would certainly open up a big opportunity to draft somebody. Yeah. I would also say they'll probably draft a safety too. I know Dax Hill did not have a shining rookie season, and he could potentially be a safety. He's kind of versatile, but I think there's a very good chance they lose one or both of Jesse Bates. So I think that they definitely will have to add someone there as well.
Yeah, and they'll be getting a Woozier back next year too. That's another thing to note, is that they were missing their number 1 corner.
Right, and Cam Taylor Britt to a jump, like you said, Bladen. So they'll be in good shape next year. They could absolutely win the Super Bowl next season. Yeah. It definitely feels very different than, which of course it does, because their quarterback hasn't been paid yet. The Bills, right? Their window is still absolutely wide open. So
yeah, for sure.
There's that, Bengals fans. I'm sure that you guys are absolutely sick, if there are even any Bengals fans that listen to a podcast that is hosted by me. But if there are, at least
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are, man. No, but there's hope in Cincinnati. Hopefully Joe Burrow doesn't get labeled as a playoff choker, playoff loser.
Oh, he won't. He won't.
I won't.
I'm lucky that it's not Bengals 49. I'm lucky it's not Bengals 49ers as the Super Bowl, because neither of those two fan bases are very fond of me right now with my Purdy and I don't even think I've slandered McCaffrey. I think my Aaron Jones praise just went too far, because in my tweet that everyone's mad at, I said that Nick Chubb is the only running back I'm for sure taking over Aaron Jones, which kind of left some wiggle room in a ranking. Like, I think you had
CMC at 6 and your running backs. I know. I think you had Dalvin Cook over him.
Not anymore.
You just straight up No, you definitely said he was 6.
I remember.
I probably did at some point, like maybe before the season when he was injury prone.
This tweet. Your career.
If it was before the season when he was the most injury prone player in the league, 6 was a generous ranking.
Crazy
for him.
gaslighting.
Obviously, I'd have him hired now.
He's like,
but anyway,
I guess I did.
Before the season, I probably did. Like right now, I would.
You know what we're talking about. Cut out this ooey right now.
That was a bad. Well, at the time, they should have gotten more mad at me. 49ers fans didn't care when I said it then. They weren't on me. But now, anyway, I love me some Aaron Jones. But anyway, I know I've pushed like Chris Jones Defensive Player of the Year propaganda over Nick Bosa, and said like at least that Aaron Jones and Christian McCaffrey are on the same tier, and not been a big Brock Purdy fan. So 49ers fans don't like me. Obviously, Bengals fans are very. I think they've been more accepting of me recently, but not huge fans. So I couldn't even go to Phoenix and like show my face if those two teams were the Super Bowl. So I'm glad they're not, and both of these fan bases like me, and maybe you'll say hi instead of fuck you if they see me around town.
Anyway, if we want to talk about the Eagles progressing to the Super Bowl, I mean the Niners. God, the Niners were so injured, and then they also were just really undisciplined. I thought just a lot of dumb penalties.
You're making too big
a lot
of
dumb penalties.
I think they ended up just getting frustrated, but that penalties.
Yeah, no, you're a grown. Like, you just have to like be more professional. I'm sorry. Like, you were in the game despite being injured. You let them pull away by kicking yourself in the foot.
They were done. It was over once 30 went down. And it was, and then at a point they literally had a quarterback that could not throw. They didn't have anyone who could throw the ball on the team. And they were down multiple scores. That game was over to the highest degree of over.
Yeah. You are asking some strange questions after that loss in the group chat. I will say that. I won't.
Do you want to talk? Do you want to talk about?
Do you want to talk about it? Do you want to talk about it?
Well, it depends. Do you think the comments are going to kill me for this?
Yes.
Then maybe we shouldn't talk about it.
Okay. Blaiden thought the 49ers loss was a little bit maybe worse than it actually was. I think. I mean, maybe you still do.
I still think it's pretty bad.
He was.
It's just. I don't understand why we're like throwing guys down at the end of the game is stupid. It's just like, I don't know. It just seemed like a lot of dumb.
I don't disagree
coming out
with that. I don't disagree. It was like that, but I mean, it wasn't a horrible lot. Like, I don't think this falls at the feet of anyone on the 49ers. It's just you had no quarterback.
Unit?
You had no quarter. It would be like
no quarter.
Like you didn't.
No, but here's
one.
no. But they did have one,
and
right?
It wasn't like they had no quarterback up 14. No. They didn't have a quarterback like down 3 scores, and they were like running trick plays, and they were just doing like triple reverses instead of passing the ball. Like, I just don't know what you expected Shanahan. And I get that there were some dumb penalties, and it's a frustrating situation, but you got to keep your composure. And the Eagles, they didn't even have a great offensive game, and penalties, helped them move the ball, like, absolutely. But like, I don't think this is really an indictment of anybody on the 49ers. It's a situation that you can't win against the best team in the league when you don't have a quarterback. You just can't do it.
Well, then here's the question. How many quarterbacks have to get hurt under Kyle Shanahan's watch before we start to question why they keep getting hurt?
Well, I can tell you why they got hurt. Hassan Reddick blew up Brock Purdy and bent his elbow backwards. And then Josh Johnson, his head snapped and he hit the ground hard and he got a concussion. Jimmy G went down awkward, and so did Trey Lance. Like, these are not like who are you blaming here? What do you think they could have done? These were normal football plays.
They just happen too frequently.
Too frequent. Like, what training? What medical?
It's not like
they
necessarily.
Have done differently to
I can tell you. Josh Johnson one is bad luck. That's bad luck. Purdy's is a missed blocking assignment. And Purdy not seeing the guy.
Yes. So this doesn't fall at the feet of the training staff. Like, if the
that's not
tight end lost slowly
that's
instead
coaching.
Of instantly, it would have been
coaching.
Fine.
That's coaching. Then that's what.
So you think? I think that's
a
bad play caller.
I'm not saying he's a bad play. He's a great play caller.
Dangerous play caller.
I loved your tweet. Your tweet where you say Shanahan sold his soul to be the greatest play caller ever, but like the price always comes in these big
like
moments.
When that I tweeted that after Nick Bosa got hurt on a punt because someone got pushed out of bounds into his leg, and I was like, how unlucky
who was the one pushing guys out of bounds? The Niners.
I guess Kyle Shanahan, to hear you talk about it. He was out there.
I will say that I do think the 49ers have had a pretty crazy run of our quarterbacks always get hurt. And not just this year, for several years. And I also do question Tyler Kroft blocking Hassan Reddick on that play. But I don't know if I quite have the... the solid, here's why that is happening so consistently to
I'm not going to say that
Kroft. I don't want to defend Kroft blocking, like blocking tight ends is edge rusher on tight end is a bad matchup. but it happens. It just is going to happen when you're in 12 personnel. Like there's going to be someone lined up outside of the tight ends, and one of your tight ends is going to have to block him. You're hoping that he can lose slowly, and there's play action, and then McCaffrey is like open in the flat because they bit on the play action, and they didn't bite on the play action, and Reddick eviscerated the guy. Like,
or your quarterback should know where pressure could come from because there's a weak link.
That's true. Like Purdy could have, like, it could have been maybe done better, and Purdy, didn't quite have that internal clock in his head going off. Like, oh, I shouldn't throw it when a guy is bearing down on me. I got to know like where everybody is. It's an impossible ask, but good quarterbacks do it, and I can't attempt to throw when there's someone breathing down my neck because I'm going to get strip sacked. Like that is definitely true.
Right.
But
that ended up being a play that took Purdy out of the game and cost them a turnover.
You're right. It was a bad play. This doesn't fall at the feet of like, it's a bad play. They happen, but assigning blame for injuries, I do think some medical staffs are better than others, but the 49ers were a healthy team outside of the quarterback coming into the playoffs. Debo is there. Trent Williams is there. Nick Bosa is there. Eric Armstead is there. The entire secondary is basically healthy. The entire offensive line is pretty much healthy. McCaffrey is there finally after being hurt forever. Ayuk is there. Like Kittle is there, even though he's injury prone. This is not some like, oh my God, they've mismanaged all these injuries. Like this is horror. Like how can it be true? The only thing, like Garoppolo's been injury prone his entire career. And he was the guy
his entire career's been in San Francisco pretty much.
I know, I guess, but that's not San Francisco's fault. Is it, the Chiefs' fault that Kadarius Toney got hurt? He's injury prone. You're trying to assign blame to something that's bad luck here.
I'm not necessarily saying it's the medical staff or that it's Shanahan or that it's an individual player's fault, but the tweet where I'm like, there are 3 to 5 teams that need to be addressed or investigated for having a lot of injuries. The Titans are one. The Niners have been one of the more injury-prone teams over the last decade. You're right; they were better about it outside of the quarterback position this year. The Ravens are another. There's a few teams that are like that. So it's like, and I'm not saying that because we've talked about it on live before. It's really hard to assign that blame, but you have to go through and establish why does this problem keep happening. Because it keeps happening.
Investigated by what? A third party?
No, I'm not. Maybe internal, like whatever you have, but like it keeps costing you. These problems that you keep having players get hurt, and it keeps costing you games. It keeps costing you playoff runs. The 49ers are no exception. The Ravens are no exception. The Titans are no exception.
Yeah, I guess I agree with that. Is you got to like maybe look at all these plays where injuries happened and see if there's a common theme. But I just don't know enough. I think that like these teams need to be investigated. Is just like, and again, everyone was healthy outside of Jimmy G. Everyone was healthy. So to say like, oh, they need to be they are so injured. Like it was just unfortunate. It is no one can control. Like you're playing the game with the running back. You've had a bunch of quarterbacks go down. It's just, I think it's just unlucky. I think like would you hire DeMeco Ryan? Would you still hire DeMeco Ryans after this performance if they're undisciplined and everyone's hurt?
He's a great defensive play caller. I mean, they have some crazy stuff going on.
Undisciplined.
They were. They play aggressive, and I can't lie, they do play kind of dirty. They make some really late hits.
I personally think that undisciplined defense is maybe not the worst thing in the like. Racking up penalties is not always the worst. I honestly thought
maybe not. They were the best. They were the best defense. They were the best defense in the league.
Being a
but
penalty
when they played a great offense,
is not the worst thing in the world. Honestly, I mean, I remember the Legion of Boom was one of the most flagged teams. Playing that super physical style is not always a bad thing. And I think the 49ers defense, despite the final score, actually played pretty good overall until things kind of just got out. It's like it's to a point where it's just like, okay, we don't have a quarterback. We're down 3 scores and I'm angry. I don't know how much I blame them for that. As far as the injury stuff goes, I don't know. I kind of think that they've led them, like Nick Bosa. The Bosa guys, those guys are just injury prone. Something about them. I don't know what it is. They're just injury prone. They've always been injury prone.
He tore his ACL in college, didn't he?
He didn't play. It was like a hip thing, maybe. I don't even remember. But he missed out on what would have been like a legendary, super awesome season because of that. And, Kittle's been super injury prone. And I'll say this, if you're a team that often is banged up and you go trade for Christian McCaffrey, you're kind of like, to a point, maybe, are you worrying enough about players being injury prone when you acquire them? But again, it's maybe a mix of things rather than anything I could blame on any one guy. And today, most definitely, it was just bad luck. You don't have a quarterback at all? That's bad luck. Dude, they're like, Purdy's out for the game, and it's like,
right.
The reason they
get hurt all the time. The reason they get hurt all the time is because they think they could get deals on like injury prone play. Like they just are like, if you're gonna be selling Christian McCaffrey,
that's bad evaluation.
He's, a running back who's not super reliable, and you think you want to trade, like, we'll trade for him. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's hurt all the time. I guess they didn't really get a deal with him, but Kittle, he's hurt all the time, but we're gonna sign him anyway. And it's Nick Bosa's had his injury problems. They're some teams won't touch anybody with medical problems. They won't touch anybody, like they'll find something or there'll be an injury history and they won't sign them. And some teams will look at that and say, we look at the ceiling. We like the ceiling. If we could just be healthy one time at the right time, we can win the whole thing. And the 49ers had a chance to do that this year. And then, Purdy fucked up his elbow, and it's not like, maybe if the medical staff did more elbow training with him, maybe they could have braced his elbow before the hit, and then they would have been fine. But like, that just isn't a realistic expectation. So I don't know. The Eagles, and I know the Eagles, getting to them, I saw a lot of allegations on Twitter, like this is a Mickey Mouse playoff run, and it is. It's a very easy path. Like,
they were the 1 seed.
Lie to you, but they're the 1 seed, and it's not like they're squeaking by either. It's not like, oh man, they would have lost this game if, something. Well, first of all, the Giants game, there was nothing Mickey Mouse about that, right? Like, the Giants weren't hurt. The Giants didn't get unlucky in that game. They're just a way better team than the Giants. So that wasn't really a Mickey Mouse game at all to me. Like, the Giants aren't a super talented team to face in that. But if they would have beat if they would have beat the Vikings, would it have been Mickey? Like, I don't know. They beat them like.
They already beat them like earlier this year.
Okay, so they're way better than like. Right, they're way better than them. There's nothing Mickey, like, they made it very clear that they're not like, they didn't squeak by them and then squeak by a quarterbackless team. No, they obliterated the Giants, and then. This game, they didn't play their best game. They were fortunate that this wasn't a full strength 49ers team, but they were the 1 seed. They got a bye, right? They probably would have lost one game all year if Jalen Hurts stayed healthy. Like, this is not some fake team.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the Eagles' offense in this game, because they really didn't play their best game. A lot of weird stuff going on. I thought the thing that stood out to me most in particular was these deep shots that were just not there today. And it's like they wanted, because that's their bread and butter. They've been killing it on those sideline deep shots all year. And today it's like, well, we're throwing it down there anyway, even though this guy is not open. And you're seeing some really great coverage and playing the ball.
Or when he is open, we're going to overthrow him by 10 yards.
They had a couple of times, and even the Devontae one which was caught.
But that's why you snap the ball. That's why you snap the ball.
Heads up play by Devontae.
Kadarius Toney, when he dropped that pick that could have been a touchdown that could have been called a score, he got up and he was all sad.
He was walking.
Looks like kind of catch. He's like, "Oh man!" It's like, no, dude, you gotta sell it.
Well, a touchdown, they would have reviewed it anyway.
You gotta have the kicker sprint onto the field, man. Figure that one out. But no, I agree. And Devontae, it seemed like, I have no proof. It seemed like he had like a hand signal. It seemed like he was doing like this, like, we got to like go. We got to snap the ball. I didn't really catch that. And that's a heads up play. That's big time, because most receivers, and I feel like if I was a receiver, I would be like celebrating and being like, yeah, I caught it, no matter what. You're trying to play it off that way. But being able to just immediately tell your offense, we got to go, and getting the ball off, that was big time.
It was an incredible effort to even make it look like a catch too. For it to even be like close, because that thing was like well over his head. He had to snag that thing with one hand.
Yeah.
And it really looked like a catch. Like even on the first couple replays, it really looked like a catch. So yeah, I mean, it was an amazing play to even get it to that point. It definitely was not a catch, but you gotta live in the you got to give them credit for putting themselves in a situation for the refs to make a bad call with the effort and the post non-catch effort.
Yeah, and not give the 49ers time to call a timeout to be like, wait, should we take another look at that?
But yeah, it was a disjointed game by the Eagles offense. Their one good play was run it at Kinlaw, the other defensive tackle. That was hilarious to track.
Kenneth Gainwell cut back. It was their favorite play.
They would build a double team with Kelsey and Dickerson on Kinlaw, and Kinlaw would fly backwards like 5 yards immediately. I mean, he was just getting blasted off the ball, and those runs like to that gap it was their best stuff. But through the air, there just wasn't a lot of rhythm passing. There wasn't a lot of Kurtz. It was kind of a weird game from the zone option standpoint because there were just a lot of mistakes by both teams. It felt like Nick Bosa at times should have held the edge and they were able to get around him on some of these zone read stuffs, or on one play Nick Bosa made a great play and maybe Hurts should have handed it off a couple times and he kept it, or it was just kind of whatever they ran that, it just like was a mess for one of the teams. Like there was that play where, Fred Warner went the wrong way on the first touchdown.
Yeah, he just didn't react properly to it at all.
Yeah, and he was definitely responsible for Hurts keeping the ball, but Hurts had clearly handed it off, and he still went with Hurts. The bigger problem on that play was also the double teams they built, absolutely destroyed the down lineman. And then there was the play where he just stood there while Hurts was his own. It was just kind of no team could quite get that play right, it seemed like, on both sides.
I mean, but that's kind of what big on big. I mean, it was just the best offensive line with the best downhill run blocking against the best run defense in football, right? And that's what we got. We just got two teams trying to consistently outsmart and outmatch each other, and it looked discombobulated the whole time.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it was a disaster for someone every time that play got ran. It was either, shout out Hurts. I thought for sure Nick Bosa was going to drag him into the end zone when
but he squats 600 pounds, so
yeah, he's a strong dude to fall forward in that situation. But yeah, just not the best game. I didn't think Greenlaw played very well. I thought he took some bad angles a couple different times. Warner got hurt early. He wasn't really making I struggle to blame him too much on the plays where he just stands there or goes the wrong way, because he is responsible for the quarterback. It's not like he is it's not like he's completely blowing his assignment, but you'd like him to maybe recognize it a little bit quicker. Bosa, I didn't think he had his best game, even though he had definitely some flash plays. Just didn't get their best. But yet it was still a good defensive effort for most of it for the 49ers, which just kind of goes to show
the secondary played
good
really,
the defense.
really well. And that was one of the big questions. They deserve a lot of credit. But that game sucked. That was an awful game.
It was ass. It was ass.
I still watched.
Still watched, yeah.
Had to represent.
I may have fired
up
2K. I may have fired up the Xbox and gotten a 2K league game in towards the very end of that game. I can't lie to you guys. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, you kind of got the point. It's like, okay, they're putting Purdy back in. Can he throw? Nope.
No.
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
There's some
McCaffrey throw a pass though.
Yes.
It
There's a big coordinator changes today. The Dallas Cowboys fired Kellen Moore, and
that will solve
the Dolphins
everything.
Hired.
Theo, you're a big Kellen Moore fan.
I don't know if I'm a big fan of him, but I think there's been a lot of unfair offensive coordinator firings this year. Like with Mike LaFleur, I get that they couldn't move the ball towards the end of the year, even with Mike White, and I think that it's not the perfect offense. There is some motion that doesn't go anywhere. Braxton Berrios was way too much involved in that team, they would like throw it to him and ask him to do like Garrett Wilson, that guy changes direction. He's like better after the catch than like anyone else. Give the bubble screens to him and not Braxton Berrios, who will get like arm barred by a defensive like back, and he'll go flying like an anime punch because he's just like doesn't have great contact balance. And so I like there's nits to pick, but you know, the bigger problem there is Zach Wilson. The bigger problem there is the fact that like Mike White was supposed to be the answer after your number 2 overall pick. You made the wrong pick. He was never going to BYU if you scouted that well. GM,
Right.
you gave him a bad piece of clay to work with, and then like I know Washington fans hate Scott Turner, but like I thought the offense was like pretty okay considering they're again starting an XFL quarterback for most of it. And same thing with Kellen Moore, man. He's 34 years old. Like, let him make some mistakes and learn from him. That's where I'm at. Like, were there some mistakes in his process? Yes. Was it a little bit bland at times? Was it a little bit too cute at times? Yes. You know, it wasn't always perfect. It was a little bit of both sometimes. Sometimes it was it like would kind of shift between being sometimes too bland and being too cute sometimes. And they would get in one formation and they wouldn't leave it through like the entire drive. And then the next, if it didn't work, they'd do something else. And, you know, I don't know. There were definitely, I get why Cowboys fans are frustrated, but I just think that you got to let guys learn from their mistakes and grow, especially with a 34-year-old coach who the results hadn't been horrible.
It does kind of feel like, well, if you're not going to fire McCarthy, and they're sitting around like, well, we got to do something. So we're going to change the offensive coordinator. And I don't know if that's a particularly serious move, but I also do kind of feel like the Cowboys are in a situation where there just isn't like a championship move available to them. But we'll see who they hire, I guess. But I just think that like it's just not working out.
Well, McCarthy is calling plays next year. So maybe they could bring in. So if McCarthy is calling plays and you fire Kellen Moore, like what idea guy are you bringing in that's better than Kellen Moore? Like he tries some cool stuff. That's part of his problem is maybe he does stuff like that's too cute or too galaxy brained, like too often. But
like, you could have kept Kellen Moore on the payroll and still like had McCarthy keep.
And right, that's the thing is like everyone who you want to sign to replace Kellen Moore has probably also been fired at some point for similar reasons, you know? Like, I'd rather let the young guy who's shown talent in this area grow than, like, McCarthy. He's gotten fired for bad play calling, right? Like, it is possible that he does not call plays that Cowboy fans you think are perfect all the time. He might call slant flat 15 times in a row, and it may get a little bit stale and predictable. Like he might do that. I've seen it happen. And maybe Kellen Moore could have called slant flat a little bit more often. And he tried to do the play action deep shot too much, or, you know, some pin pull, like, I don't know, something that you didn't think was like the most efficient call for the time. But, you know, McCarthy, his offense has gotten stale before, right? And it feels like McCarthy, he's like, oh, one more bad year and one more disappointing year and I'm gone, right? One more disappointing year. So if it's going to be like that, I'd rather control my own destiny and take play calling back for myself. It feels like that. It feels like someone is out there is protecting their job because it just doesn't make that much sense to me. It really doesn't. And I know Cowboys fans hate Kellen Moore and they think he's terrible, but I think that there's enough good there that you let him grow as such a young coach.
I want to bring up an interesting thought experiment when it comes to coaches, because I think when it comes to quarterbacks, there's this idea that like there are a very set number of like quarterbacks that you're winning with. And I think most people agree there's probably like 14, maybe like 6, like roughly in that area. But with coaches,
once you get past like a certain quarterback, maybe Kirk Cousins is always kind of the person on the borderline. Like once you get below a Kirk Cousins caliber quarterback,
the quarterbacks after Kirk Cousins are looking pretty rough,
pretty rough. But with coaches, right? I just released the NFL coaching quiz today, and Theo, you took it, and I noticed like Kevin Stefanski's at 19, right? And then you have like Robert Saleh at 22. And I'm like, those are still some pretty good coaches. And I'm wondering what the drop off is at coach, because we always talk about like the two things that you need for a team is like a good coach and a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But like there seems to be way more good coaches than I think like as a collective community we think. I think more teams think they need a coach than actually do.
Yeah, I think you need good coaching, but there's a lot of different coaches, man. There's all of college football. There's all of the NFL. So maybe they can find someone better than Kellen Moore. I don't know. But yeah, it just feels like Dan Quinn is the real prize there, I guess. I don't know. I feel like you could fire McCarthy and promote Dan Quinn, and I would rank Dan Quinn higher as a coach than McCarthy. But I don't know what it's just I wish there was a little bit more patience with guys. That's all I think I have to say. I wish there was a chance to let maybe some guys who are young and have made mistakes grow. Look at Zach Taylor, right? He was not a banner play caller, and he was even at the beginning of the season, right? Like you knew exactly what they were going to do based on how they lined up, and it was a very much like there were no easy plays. And last year it was all like these deep shots to Jamar Chase over and over and over again. Like where's the easy, just schemed up stuff? And then this year, like there's a little bit more of that, and it seems to flow a whole lot better. And Saleh, right? Like the defense got, he's hired as this defensive mind. The defense isn't any good last year, or the year before, but this year, all of a sudden he gets some guys in the building and like, there it is. It's better. Like I think that the guys just need a little bit more time. I think you look at the Steelers, what's their thing? Patience. And you may want them to fire Matt Canada, and I want them to fire Matt Canada. Like, I don't think Matt Canada is very good, but it's a winning record again this year. And they do it year after year after year after year. And it's not because they're reactionary. That's what I'll say. So I just wish there was a little bit more patient with coaches around the league when they don't win with a losing formula. And it's not like the Cowboys have a losing formula, but it's also not like they've lost, right? They were, I think, 5th or 6th in points scored per game this year. They went 3-1 or 4-1 or whatever it was with Cooper Rush. And like, I just don't think that's a fireable offense. I really don't. I think there was definitely ways that Kellen Moore can improve, but you got to let him do it.
I don't disagree. I don't know. There's only so many thoughts I think you can have about it. I think, again, I stand by it. The Cowboys felt like they need to make a move, and it's very hard to with the position that their roster is in. So you can fire the coordinator, I suppose, but I just don't think there's a championship move there for a team like the Cowboys.
Yeah. It's tough for them. Well, the Dolphins hired Vic Fangio to be their new defensive coordinator. How are we feeling about that?
Fangio's good. Fangio's the blueprint. He's the guy that, and the reason the league kind of is where it is right now with a lot of these defensive coordinators and the hot new wave and all of that is because of his 2 high quarters based system with a lot of deep zones. We're going to prevent the big play, and then we're going to get a bunch of good players in the front, and we're going to see if we can stop the run, or we're okay with giving up the run and the short passes as long as we don't allow that explosive. And you've seen that all around the league this year, right? You've seen that all around. It became kind of the predominant thing. It really gave Mahomes. It's the only thing that has like ever given Mahomes problems. It has given Josh Allen some problems. It's the only thing that can like slow those guys down. So yeah, and he was a consultant. We talked about this with Brett. He was a consultant on the Eagles this year. The Eagles had a great defense this year, right? Like he's been successful. He has been successful. He is a good coach. He knows the scheme up and down, and he's good at teaching it to people. He's a good teacher, and he's smart, and he's a vet. He knows what he's doing. I like it. It's a completely different thing than Boyer, because Boyer would, let's play a bunch of man. Let's send the house. And it'll be interesting. I think they've got the front to do it. I love Jalen Phillips. They've got Bradley Chubb. They've got Christian Wilkins. Like, they can survive with that front, dropping people back into coverage. But it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Xavier Howard, because when you think of his skill set, you think of him as kind of that man cover, and same with Byron Jones, like that. those kind of feel like bump and run. Like we're going to play man, we're going to get physical, and that's just not the scheme they run anymore. So I'm really interested to see what direction they go in with their corners.
All I know is that Matt's going to be thrilled that they're not running this like Engage 8 Madden-esque.
I am, because that sucks, and that play sucks, and that type of defense sucks, and his little boy stuff. And so I agree with the hire.
Fair enough.
I would watch a sitcom on the young, hotshot, nerdy Mike McDaniel and the old grizzled vet Vic Fangio. That's a very funny pairing as your primary like guys in a room. Like Sean Payton and Vic Fangio, that makes sense to me in my head. Like, yeah, it's those guys know what they're doing,
right?
But not that Mike McDaniel does it, but they've been around the league forever. These are the old school. Like they probably know each other pretty well and know what each other. But like this kind of feels like the old. It feels like a comedy trope, a cliche, like old grumpy guy. Because remember, he didn't like Drew Lock's swag.
Funny,
right? He didn't like Drew Lock's like personality. He didn't like him because he was, that's the rumors is he just didn't think he had the mental makeup. But McDaniel's a little bit like that, right? He's a little bit like nonchalant, off the cuff, and I don't know. I would watch a Hard Knocks.
Old grizzled vet, and the other one is vaping on the sideline
this summer in Miami. I want Hard Knocks in Miami, and I just want to see the two of them interact.
Oh God,
that's what I think.
Any other big coaching hires?
So D'Amico Ryans is the favorite for the Texans job. And you know what? If any team does need just some aggression and a little bit unorthodox or undisciplined defensive play, it's the goddamn Houston Texans, man.
I don't think that's a fair characterization of it, because they had no penalties before this game. Like the first two, they were talking about it on the broadcast. Like they don't.
No, it's because they didn't play anyone. They didn't need to play hard, but now they play a team.
They played the Cowboys.
Nah, man. They played Dak Prescott's a fraud, remember?
It's a what have you done for me lately? Lately. He's coached some very penalty-prone defenses. I think it's going to be hilarious going from the 49ers linebackers to the Texans linebackers.
The Texans linebackers, they didn't learn anything all year. Like, they just didn't... They didn't learn a single thing under Lovie Smith.
Bro just called the Texans linebackers dumb.
No, I didn't call them dumb. I said I'm saying that their teachers didn't do a good job. All right, you don't get to the NFL by not knowing how to learn.
Where did you rank Lovie Smith on?
Probably a dead last, because
you ranked him at 30. You ranked Saturday and Roseburg lower.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even recognize who Roseburg was in Saturday, of course. But Lovie, like week 1, I was like, damn, these linebackers suck. And then week 18, I'm like, they are still making the wrong reads every single play. So at least D'Amico Ryan, like Lovie Smith was such an unserious hire. He had a horrible record as the head coach at Illinois, and then led some of the worst defenses in the league and got a promotion. And David Culley was also unserious. So I would be for the Texans hiring anybody who is like not a joke. And D'Amico Ryan's no joke. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of their starting middle linebacker was Christian Kirksey, so you can
right, but like Christian Kirksey hasn't go. I don't
Christian
care.
Kirksey hasn't been a good linebacker in 6 years, dog.
I know. Well, he played for the Packers. I know that he's bad. But like Christian Harris is a talented player, and he played with Saban at Bama. There's just no reason for them to be making just horrific mistakes all season. So I just want them to hire someone serious, because it was a very unserious coaching hires these last 2 years. Yeah. And I think D'Amico
would at least be serious.
Yeah, I think that everything he's done on defense this year, it's not super complicated. He's not someone who's going to like reinvent the wheel or anything. But that defense just plays so fast. All right, the best defenses aren't usually the most complicated ones. They're the ones who just they play the fastest. You know what you're doing.
The Bengals game against the Bills.
Basic ass cover 4 can solve most of the problems the offense throws at you if you just know the ins and outs of it, right? And
Yeah.
he clearly taught every single player on that team the ins and outs of it, and they played really, really fast all year. And yeah, I think he's a good teacher, and that's the main thing with a head coach. I think it's a lot of it is just how good of a teacher are you, how good of a communicator are you, how good of a manager of people are you, and I think D'Amico shows good traits in all those areas from his time in San Francisco.
Fair enough. And then the last one is LaFleur is the new OC for the Rams.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I don't have to. I feel like that stuff is McVay is kind of doing McVay stuff offensively.
Yeah.
Right. He can't, someone from the Shanahan tree is working with McVay now. Oh, like that. I think if anything, McVay is a smart guy. I think that he knows LaFleur is a smart guy, and I think he knows that it wasn't all his fault in New York. It wasn't.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised McVay is not calling it a career?
I don't know if I'm surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if he hung it up, but I'm not surprised that he's coaching either. You know,
I guess that's fair.
It would. I think that if he once Stafford retires and Donald and like Kupp all get older, I think then it would surprise me if he oversees a rebuild after that core is gone. I think that might be what he's got in his head, because it really feels like he is not going to be here for the long haul. But I think the stars were banged up. Kupp and Stafford were so banged up this year. I think it makes sense to me that he's giving it another.
He probably made some calls like, "Yo, Donald, you coming back? Yo, Stafford, you good?" and then when he got affirmation on both of those, he was like, "All right, I'll stay."
If Donald and Stafford retired, there's no way he would have come back. He would have been working. He would have replaced Al Michaels' bored ass in Sleepy Al for Amazon, and
bro would be joining Scott Hansen on 7 hours of commercial-free
Hey, it's Sean McVay.
football.
Welcome to 7 hours of commercial-free football, everybody. That would have been him if those two retired.
Would have been legendary.
One more thing, Matt. Thoughts on the Lakers versus Celtics game? LeBron's
my king.
My
king.
I think we should just start ending, or go ahead, but I think we should just start ending every show with LeBron update.
Well, he's 117 points away from officially being the greatest player of all time. It should be 115, but Jason Tatum is a dirty player, and he's got an in with the refs or something. I don't know. That was a terrible no call. You think LeBron overreacted? You should have seen me. I'm working with one monitor right now. You know how it goes, but
yeah.
I was rolling on the ground, my hand on my knees, head in my hands, sobbing.
It's like that video of the Cowboys fan after the Zeke center play.
That or the one where he whips out the gun and shoots the TV. Have you ever seen that Cowboys fan video? I think it was after last year's playoff game.
No, last
shot the television.
Those guys are so funny because like you see Zeke line up at center and you're not like going to get mad if it doesn't work. You're like, well,
bro, I see Zeke line up at center. If I'm a Cowboys fan and I see Zeke line up at center, I'm already mad, bro. Like that's it. I've punched my TV before the ball's even been snapped.
But those plays, it's like, were you really like getting that upset that you didn't complete the 14 lateral touchdown play? Like you kind of already knew it was over. So I think, or if like you're shooting a gun at your TV. You're probably like preparing for that a little bit more. That's not like a genuine rage.
I just hope you don't live in an apartment, man.
This is why people think lowly of Americans. They see a video of a Cowboys fan shooting his TV after they lose, and they're like, "Yep, that's about what I expect."
Yeah. Well, at least here in America, we we just shoot our TVs instead of being racist like over in Europe. where
Yeah, because we're definitely not racist over here.
Yeah, that is true. I will say. Wait. I will say that is never a good kind. But the Eagles being in the Super Bowl, getting hyped up to Creed and Eminem like rap battles is one of the biggest wins for white culture in history.
No, when the game ended, they were playing Meek Mill. All right,
did they?
When the game ended,
Philly,
they played Meek Mill.
I guarantee you that wasn't Sirianni's decision. That guy's music taste is the same as my old movie theater manager, who was like 28 when I worked at the movie theater. Like, and it would play. He reminds me a lot of Sirianni in the music taste thing. Like, I don't know what
you have to play Meek Mill. That is a requirement. It is Meek Mill.
Yeah, you're getting hyped up with Eminem in the year 2023 and Creed. This is just so 2008. Like, it's just 2008.
No, it is Dreams and Nightmares, Uptown Vibes, Champions. That's what we're listening to all week. All right, Fly Eagles fly.
Not the Eagles. They're going to be listening to. They're going to listen to. I don't know. A lot of David Grohl. I don't know.
What? Oh man. Anyway, I think that pretty much wraps things up for us. We got pretty off the rails there towards the end, but thank you all for tuning in. We will be back. Pretty much the next couple of weeks is going to be a lot of Super Bowl preview. I guess we'll probably talk a little bit about the Pro Bowl because they are doing like a little bit of different stuff this year. Some draft talk will be, the other stuff on the way, and then mostly just off-season plans as we kind of wrap up the season here. Thank you all for tuning in, and as always, from Corn Boy, Bird Boy, and Lemon Boy, we will catch you all on the Flippity Flop.